Hello everyone, today I wanted to make a quick review on this microphone right here. This is the HyperX QuadCast S. It is by no means a brand new USB microphone into the market, but it's one of the more interesting ones because of many factors. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the HyperX QuadCast came out about 6 years ago, which is a fairly long time in the world of audio, but the QuadCast S, the microphone I'm using today, came out back in October of 2021. The big difference between those two microphones is the fact that this one has a USB-C port, which means it's a lot easier to connect this to, say, your phone, your iPhone, your Android phone, and also it has this really cool silky RGB lighting. Does that affect the audio? No. Does it affect the sales? Clearly, yes, it does. So anyway, let's get to the specifications of this microphone. When it comes to the build quality of this microphone, it is not anything that is incredibly impressive. It's made almost completely out of plastic except the stand bit. The stand bit is made out of metal, which gives it some weight to help make it more stable on the desk. The microphone also has a thick layer of foam that should stop a bunch of pop noises, and it should do a pretty good job, and it does. But obviously it's not assuming that you're going to be very up close, because very up close it can pop fairly quietly. But obviously you're going to be using this microphone hopefully within a bigger distance, and if you're going to use it within this kind of distance, then you should probably apply some kind of pop filter in the front. Now besides that, this microphone has a mute button on the top. Now it does make a bit of noise when you click it for the first time like this, which, while it is good that it's touch sensitive, the fact that it does produce a loud sound is not really great. And by the way, before getting any further, if you like the sound of this microphone by the end of this review and you decide to buy it, I will have a link in the description, and if you buy it through that link, I will earn a small commission and I'll be very happy. But now let's get back to the review of this lovely piece of work of a microphone, the HyperX QuadCast S. When it comes to also the gain on this microphone, it is implemented in a very nice way that I highly enjoy. It has a little dial on the bottom that not a lot of users seem to understand for some reason, but you just control it up and down and it should give or take a bunch of gain. Now, what I like is the gain that's changed using this dial is also not very aggressive. It doesn't go between 0 and 100% in a very linear way, but rather almost between 30 or 40 and 100%, which is quite nice. Moving on to the fact that the microphone is completely made out of plastic. Is that a concern? Not really. It should be light, and it is. And last but not least, when it comes to the build quality, is the fact that this microphone has a built-in shock mount, which is probably the best thing about this microphone besides the fact that it's a USB-C. The fact is, this microphone, if I touch it like this, it has a ton of resonance, but then if I put it on some kind of surface and I tap the desk, it is not that audible. Now you might think this is audible, but if the microphone had no shock mount, it is going to be a lot more audible. Now last but not least, we're going to talk about the polar patterns right before we get to the sound. The polar patterns at the back of this microphone features 4 different polar patterns, and in case you're not that interested in listening to a bunch of audio jimbo jumbo, then you should probably just keep it on the cardioid polar pattern, which looks a bit like a heart. Now the other polar patterns here could be useful if you're recording something like some kind of ASMR or some kind of podcast with a bunch of people, but for most people this is probably going to be the one that you're going to need. So right now I'm recording on the cardioid polar pattern, but if I switch it to the figure 8 mode, I'll do this. Now the figure 8 mode takes sound from the front and the back. Now do not mistake this for the omnidirectional. The omnidirectional takes sound from all the different sides. Now this is a figure 8, which means it's going to collect sound from the front and the back. The sound is not going to be the exact same from both sides. In fact, it is really different, but it does technically turn on both capsules, so I guess that works, but honestly it doesn't sound great. If you wanted some kind of figure 8 microphone where you can collect sound from the front and the back, you can probably invest in a cheaper microphone that could be one direction, and you can plug that a 2-input audio interface, because this is not that great. But moving on to the next polar pattern, this is the omnidirectional, and as you can hear, it doesn't really matter where I stand in front of the microphone, the sound is almost the exact same. And while that theoretically means that this microphone is going to capture all the sounds if you have, like, say 5 or 6 people in one sitting, and yes, it will, that is going to give you a probably better job if you have like people sitting in a 360 degrees, but at the same time it has a ton more background noise because it is activating all the capsules that are inside of this microphone. What this jumbo jumbo means is that if you're one person, please stick to the cardioid mode, and if you're going to be recording in a room with a bunch of people and you want to record this as a bit of a conference microphone, though I doubt you will because it's clearly a gaming microphone, then I guess this mode can work. The last one is the one that's used probably more in a setting that I'm not very familiar with, the stereo ASMR setting, which is very specific, I gotta say. And in this polar pattern, you can talk from pretty much all the different sides of the microphone, microphone, and they're going to be registering as a stereo microphone. So here you can talk to the front, here you can talk to the left, here you can talk to the front again, and here you can talk to the right. Now, how usable is this for the kind of use case that it does? Because technically, this can make this seem like a 360 degree or like a stereo microphone or like a 3D audio microphone. It does a good job. It does a fine job, and it works as intended, especially if you want to get something of the same quality as, say, a Zoom H2n. This does provide a very similar quality, except there's a few key differences like having a lower SPL and stuff like this. But overall, this one and the cardioid are the ones that I would stick to. Moving on to the sound quality of this mic. I don't know what you expect me to say at this part of the video, but I don't mind the sound of this mic. I don't think that it sounds incredibly legendary or that you can use it for really good and highly detailed voiceover. Let me go back to the cardioid mode real quick. Now, as I was saying, I do not think that you can do very high-end, very incredibly detailed voiceovers with this microphone, but if you're making content with this microphone, or if you want to use this microphone to talk to your friends and you want them to hear your voice in crystal clear detail, I think this is going to go great. When it comes to the bass on this microphone, it's not too bad. It's not very sub-bassy, which is a good thing because they already included a bit of a shock mount. And so drowning this microphone in sub-bass would kind of defeat the purpose. Now, obviously, if you get very up close and personal with the microphone with the proximity effect, you're going to get a bunch of bass, but trust me, this is not going to make you sound cool. But when it comes to the mids on this mic, they're fine. They're slightly recessed, but not recessed as in they're low or not there. More like it's trying to be a V-shaped sound and trying to capture a lot of the top nuance so it can kind of fake or make it somewhat artificial that it sounds really detailed. Now, it does sound detailed, do not get me wrong. For a small capsule microphone, this has plenty of detail in a way, but not if you're sitting from too far, obviously. So what I'm trying to say is that this microphone sounds good. It's just that I wouldn't use it for some applications, like for example, singing. I tried to use this microphone for singing before, and I noticed that while it does a fairly nice job rejecting the background noise when I'm recording from a fairly small distance like this, the microphone doesn't have a high SPL, SPL being the sound pressure level, which means if I start yelling in front of the microphone, it is gonna be clipping, and this clipping will translate into the goddamn recording, and you will hear it. And there are not that many ways to make that sound less clean, because obviously this isn't 32-bit float, but otherwise, I think that it sounds pretty good, and this is probably why it stayed on top for so long. This microphone was released, the original one at least about 6 years ago, but it still tops the charts on Amazon sales. Now, if you're thinking of buying this microphone, this part of the video is very important to you. How do I use this microphone, or what are some few tips that I would recommend people to use for this microphone? Well, one and most importantly, do buy a boom arm. A $20, $15 boom arm with this microphone is going to do wonders for you. Now, besides the boom arm, there's two more important things that you gotta keep in mind when using this microphone is that when you straight plug it in, I recommend that you plug your headphones to the back of the microphone. Not a lot of people are comfortable hearing their voice in the microphone, and it's really hard to get used to. But the reason I ask for this, at least for the first day or two, is for you to calibrate how loud you are. We don't really seem to understand how loud we are in calls when we don't actually hear ourselves, at least for a bit. Don't crack the microphone to the highest just because somebody said that they can't really hear you. That sometimes could be a glitch, that sometimes could be because of the software levels. Don't max it out because you will hurt the ears of other people. The last tip, which doesn't really have to do with the microphone itself, but if you're trying to record videos on YouTube and you're going to be using this microphone, please take advantage of the audio effects that are built into OBS from compression, EQ, mixing. I'll make a video about them later, and if I do, I'll probably link it in the description below. Last but not least, I wanted to do a quick test of what the background noises sound like on this microphone. I'm going to be playing a game, kind of like clicking my keyboard, and this is what's going to sound like. Currently using Razer optical switches, and this is what it sounds like. The keyboard is facing on the opposite direction on the cardioid polar pattern. You might think that this is hearing a lot of it, and it is capturing a fair bit of it, but there is no magical way to get rid of it. There's obviously noise gates that are built into softwares in form of denoisers and crisp in Discord, for example, but otherwise you're gonna have to do something about it, or you just have to live with it. It's not that bad, especially because it is reduced a lot due to the shock mount that's built in. Also to the fact that the microphone does a pretty good job at reducing the very low sub bass when it comes to the vocals, but this is obviously by design. But anyway, would I recommend the HyperX QuadCast S if you're trying to do professional, very high-end, very low noise voiceovers, singing, instruments, and very highly detailed professional work? I probably would not recommend this microphone. Unless, of course, it's your last option or you're on the go and you need to take something with you, so you can just take it. The build quality is fine. The sound can be pretty good if you're up close, and if you keep it at a fair distance, it's still fairly detailed because the top end of this microphone is fairly articulate, if not a little bit artificial. This isn't a bad thing, by the way. This just increases intelligibility of your sound. You can probably tell that my voice got a bit quieter or less detailed now that I went far away, but now that I get back, it can sound good. That said, that is my review of this mic, and yeah, I hope this video helped someone make a good decision, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.